Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another week of the Inner RAE podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about growing self awareness. It's going to be a good topic. I think I say that about every podcast episode.
Otherwise, they're all good topics.
Exactly. So, with that, I'm Katie, and I'm stoked to be here with you all on this beautiful day.
And I'm Erin. This is going to be a good one, you guys.
Let's do it. All right. We both care very, very deeply about guiding people inward to their most radiant, authentic self, to the you inside of you that just flows out of you effortlessly. We're all unique and we all have qualities that make us stand out from the crowd. And there are some qualities that we are aware of and others that we aren't aware of. And so your subconscious and your self awareness or lack of self awareness can really blur and block your radiant, authentic energy from flowing out of you. And so we were talking about this and we were like, okay, there are a lot of things out there that can help you develop self awareness. And it led us to a beautiful diagram that illustrates why, in order to grow self awareness, we need other people, professionals, and different modalities. It's called the Johari window. And I am going to pass it off to Erin to dive into it a little bit deeper. And then we'll share what brought us both into the Johari window.
Yes. Thank you, Katie. I'm like a nerd for diagrams. A good diagram just tells the story. So if you're interested, we're going to go ahead and Google the Johari window and have it pulled up while I'm walking you through it. If you're having trouble finding one, we'll put a link to the one that we're using. But the way that the Johari window works is there are 4 quadrants. Remember algebra, the XY axis. And the top left quadrant is called the open free area. And this is the area that is known by self and known by others. So this is like the part of you that you really have no problem sharing about yourself. When you walk into a room, people just know this about you once they've hung out with you a couple times. Then you go to the top right quadrant, and this is your blind area. This is an area where if you're having trouble with self awareness, you could turn to a friend, a therapist, a coach, and just say, hey, I need some feedback because I don't really know why this keeps happening, or I don't understand this pattern I keep running into. That's the area that is unknown by self, but known by others. Then we go to the bottom left area, and that is a hidden area where you know it about yourself, but for whatever reason, maybe shame, maybe society's expectations of you, you have chosen to hide this part of yourself from others. The way that you're able to grow in this area is through practicing healthy self disclosure. We've talked in several episodes about the power of vulnerability, and that's how we grow and evolve in this quadrant. Then there is the juicy final quadrant, which is the bottom right. And this is the unknown area. This is where the subconscious is most playing out. This is where it is a part of yourself that you have yet to discover and others also can't see. And this is the beautiful quadrant that is really the reason most of us go to therapy, get coaching, participate in group activities. It is where our unconscious is driving us to familiar relationships where we might experience what classical psychologists call repetition compulsion. And so this is the really juicy area that for me is the whole reason that I personally believe that we all need to be in relationships and we all need professional help because otherwise this area will never get uncovered. Katie, I would love to hear, what is your relationship to the Johari window? Where did you first learn about the power of understanding this model?
Yeah. So I was led into it when I was getting my master's. So about 3, 4 years ago. And I remember I was sitting at my desk in class and I just had my notebook out And someone came up to me and they were like, just looking at my notebook and they were like, "Hey, can I flip through and see your art?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean see my art?" I was like, "Do you mean you want to see my notes?" And they're like, "No, I want to see your art." And I was like, so confused because the way that I take notes, I've taken notes my whole life like this. I didn't realize that it looked like art to other people and that when people looked at it, they saw me as an artist. And it blew my mind. And I remember going home and being like, how is it that people see or know something about me that like I don't know about myself? Or maybe I do know about myself, but it's way, way buried deep down. And it led me into the Johari window. And I started studying it and being like, whoa. And I've studied psychology for a long time, but somehow was never led into this until that moment. From that point on, I began to seek out many different modalities that helped me dive into the different quadrants. That was my introduction into it. And I'm curious, Erin, I'm sure you probably have a story too. What was your entryway into the window?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of experiences before I ever found the Johari window where I'd had that moment of like, someone reflecting something back to me. But my most crystal clear memory of that kind of experiential awareness of like why the Johari window is such an important model was when I was in my first, what I would call very committed, long term, relatively healthy partnership. I had hit a wall in this relationship because what I discovered is that my partner didn't fundamentally believe in soliciting professional feedback as a way to grow and evolve. It was a conflict we were consistently bumping up against. I remember sitting down with him with the Johari window and sharing with him, hey, this is a deal breaker for me. If you, as my partner, don't believe in getting outside professional help to grow and evolve, we're not going to be able to grow together. And it was a breaking point in that relationship. So, a more painful story than yours, but definitely that moment where I was like, okay, whenever I work with couples, I now include the Johari window in the couple's workbook because there's often one person in the coupleship, not always, but there's often one person who's, I'm just here because they told me they were going to leave if I didn't come and do this couples work. And so sometimes I use this just to neutralize the fact that you're not being held hostage. You're here because everybody has this blind area. And shared discovery is actually like a beautiful treasure hunt that leads to that sense of a deepening connection with self and then the ability to have better, higher quality connections with others. It doesn't have to be this something is wrong with you and that's why you're in therapy or that's why you're in coaching. It's actually a beautiful treasure hunt that leads to a deeper sense of self.
Amen. What I'm hearing is there are different ways that we can relate to these quadrants right, within our lives. And there are different modalities that we can turn to help us come into the right relationship with these quadrants. So, what can lead us to a blind area is different. When I think about what equine therapy has done for me, it was a perfect way to see into my blind areas because the horse could see something or feel something in me that I was not aware of, and it would mirror it back to me. And I was like, what? Like that fear, that type of behavior exists inside of me. And it would really bring me into confronting this part of me that was playing out. Somatic therapy is another impactful modality because our bodies tell a story and there are maps of our emotions and our subconscious. When I was going through, I call it my fire because literally my whole body was on fire for 8 months. I remember going into somatic therapy and she was asking me about my anger. And she was like, have you noticed before you tell a story, you purse your lips and go like this? People can't see me, but I like pull my lips inside and I was like, no. And she was like, well, your body is showing you where you're trying to contain an emotion. It led into this whole deepening of awareness of why have I been holding back my anger? Where have I not felt all these different things? And it was just another mind blowing behavior. I'm curious too, Erin, for you, what are some different modalities where you have been able to meet yourself And how do you use this in sessions with clients?
First of all, I have told many stories about equine therapy on here. So I'm just going to say, check, agree. It's been a beautiful teacher for me. But I actually had an experience very recently with a somatic therapist who was just a friend. It wasn't a session. I was telling her a story and I kept putting my hands up. And for those just listening, I was literally pushing away with my arms and my hands when I was telling the story. And my friend who couldn't help herself was like, sounds like maybe you're trying to say you need a boundary because my hands were showing her that I wanted distance and I wanted space from the situation that I was talking about in the story. So, yeah, our bodies are always telling a story. And I had a session with a family, and every time I would make a suggestion, the dad would cross his arms and lean back in the chair. And I ended up saying to him after he did it 2 or 3 times, I said, "Hey, if your arms could talk, what would they say?" And he got really flustered and was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." But then for the rest of the session, he was a lot more present and open. So our bodies are always telling a story, and having people who are skilled being able to read that body language, both just as an observer, someone that maybe knows us well, but also as a trained somatic therapist or coach, can really help us have more self awareness about how we're showing up in the world. Another modality that has been instrumental, so much so that I'm trained in it and I continue to participate, is psychodrama. If you're not familiar with what psychodrama is, the word sounds scarier than it really is. It's essentially you take something in your life, a story, it could be something from the past, something current, something in the future, and you create a representation of it with auxiliaries. So, like actors, but it's not really like acting, but you have people represent. I did it for the very first time years ago. I did a family sculpt. And my big aha, which grew into the blind areas of my Johari window, was it was a representation of what it was like in my childhood in my family system. And there was a lot of stuff I was aware of. I put my mom in there and my dad in there, and I had alcoholism and partying and financial stress. And they had me put my brother in there, and then they did this beautiful thing where they put me in the mirror position, which basically means I picked someone to stand into the sculpt as a representation of myself. And then I stood out and looked at it and then had to tell them what I saw. And my big aha was I already knew that I had felt abandoned and neglected by my parents because of the chaos and the stuff that they were dealing with, even though they were doing the best that they could. They really were not giving me the love and attention and connection and attunement that I needed. But the big epiphany was that looking at where my brother was positioned, he's 14 months younger than me. And in the sculpt, I had him like reaching for me and like holding onto my ankle because in my experience, it always felt like he was like wanting and needing something from me, which is why I positioned him that way in the sculpt. But the big epiphany I had from looking at it was like, holy crap, not only did my mom and dad abandon my brother and neglect my brother, so did I. Because
Mm.
I was the older sibling. I was the one that was developmentally a little bit ahead of him. And don't worry if you're listening, I have forgiven myself. I've done a lot of work around this, but it was the first time that I understood some of the dynamics that were still playing out between my brother and I that I never really had compassion or understanding for before. And so that's an example of how by me going and getting help from trained professionals who are using proven modalities to help me see myself differently, I was able to shift some of the blind area in my own personal Johari window.
Such a good example. As you were sharing that, so many different things were coming up of, ooh, aha moments within my life. And I think three questions that were coming to me as you were sharing this that I want to present to everybody listening. And if you have a piece of paper out, that's great. If not, just think of a number that comes to you. If we do this on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do others know you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you share about yourself with others? And just see where your numbers are along that scale, and it will help lead you into potentially different modalities or relationships or coaching or art therapy. There's a whole list of things that will help you become more aware of yourself and be able to show up in that authenticity in relationships, which is what creates most intimacy and meaning in our lives. I'm curious, Erin, as we talk about this, if we think about the Inner RAE curriculum, is there one piece of curriculum that you would raise as a really good example where people have aha moments?
Absolutely. First of all, I think all of the curriculum is designed to do that, and we can talk about why. But the one piece of curriculum where I see this time and time again, that I have yet to have a client do it and not have a profound shift where they have a blind area, would be the anatomy of relationship curriculum. And honestly, even the course that we have for sale, I've gotten feedback from people that this course alone has done it, which I am a big fan of getting outside help and having professionals there to guide you. So, in anatomy of relationship, the concept is that a basic relationship has the three C's. You look at the quality of the connection, the quality of the commitment, and then the capacity. So that's where I find a lot of people initially have some of their first ahas is they realize that either there's something off where there's maybe more connection than there is commitment, or more commitment where there is connection, or that even though there's great connection and there's great commitment, there's a drop in capacity from one of the two people in the relationship. So that's the first place I see this showing up. And then when we get into the intimacy spectrum and we're thinking about different attachment styles, I have people place themselves and the other person on the spectrum. How is this person actually showing up? Where on the intimacy spectrum do you really crave and desire to be with this person? And when we start to actually apply their relationships to this curriculum, there is an automatic awakening that I have seen happen time and time again, such that people are able to shift that self awareness and move that blind area and make it smaller. And because relationships are our most potent teachers.
I couldn't agree more. I'm hearing just the importance of having things outside of ourselves where we can externalize that which we don't understand about ourselves, things that we don't understand that we know we don't understand, and things that are yet to find out that we don't know.
Totally. And I feel like you can either pay someone to help you do that, or you can pay for it in your relationships. Not to sound harsh, but we are going to externalize our subconscious onto our relationships.
Mm.
Whether you like it or not, every relationship in your life at some point is going to be a teacher in how to deepen your self awareness. And you can either pay for professional help and guidance to minimize the damage in your life,
Mm.
or you can wreak havoc in your relationships and figure it out that way. This is not to say that you shouldn't go through phases of life without having professional help. I take breaks all the time from therapy and coaching. But ultimately, if you are aware, oh, wow, there's something I'm missing here, you can save a lot of time and energy in your life by going and getting help from a specialist.
Yep. And sometimes you have to overcome one of those unconscious blocks to even get to that point, right?
Absolutely. This has been a wonderful episode. And as we start to close up, Katie, I would love to hear from you. Is there someone in the public eye
Mm.
broadcasting their radiant, authentic energy, inspiring you to live more fully in your radiant, authentic energy, whether it be around this topic or not? Is there someone you can think of to share with us today?
The person that is coming to my mind is a dear friend that I met in Carmel. Her name's Jennifer Perlmutter. She is a world renowned artist, and oh, she is incredible in so many different ways. But what she inspires me to do every day is to move from the inside out. The way that she paints is truly like painting from the inside out. She mixes media and collage as a way to express herself, and her art has gone through so many different phases, and each phase has been a mirror to where she's at in her journey and in her awareness of what is going on in her life. It really inspires me to dive into my art and honoring my process, because through that, we get to bring out our truest self. When I think back to the Johari window, I feel like I know myself pretty well, pretty deeply. But where my blocks are sharing my truest self with the world. And there's a whole host of reasons and experiences around why that is the case. Coming into a better relationship with that and letting people into my inner world is something that I think I'll always work on. And she helps me do that. And I think that she is just brilliant and so inspiring. And she's also going to be at our Inner RAE retreat, which makes me so excited because she's going to be the best guide into your inner world to help you express what is aching to be expressed within you, whether it is clear or not, whether you're aware of it or not. She will lead you into that part of you. And that really excites me and inspires me. Jennifer, love you if you listen to this.
So, and just so you guys know, listening, we are definitely going to be asking her to be a guest on the podcast in the next couple weeks. And Katie mentioned the retreat. If you've been listening, you probably know about it, or if you follow us on socials, but I just wanted to mention it again. We've started selling spots. The early bird special lasts until September 15th. So definitely reach out if you're considering joining us. It's going to be in Carmel by the Sea, which is where Katie lives, and Jennifer as well. November 9th through the 13th. There's lots of details on our website about all that's included. If you have a question, you can schedule a consultation with us if you want to hear more. We are really excited, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about other components of what you're going to gain from coming to the retreat in the next couple episodes. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And yeah, thank you for another wonderful episode today, Katie. Thanks you guys for listening.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Erin. See you next week.